Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron, and welcome to another episode of the ThorgE3 coverage. And so far, we've just been looking at the conferences themselves and talking about every single trailer that's been shown off at these conferences. However, there is one game that got shown off that I thought, I need to give this its own video, because there is a lot to talk about with this, which is shocking, because we didn't actually see all that much of it. But what we did see, or more accurately, what we didn't see, can speak volumes about this. You all know what I'm talking about because you clicked on the video. I'm talking about Square Enix finally showed off their Avengers game, and I will start by admitting when I'm wrong. I will totally come in here and admit I was 100% wrong on this, because we got that little teaser years ago. I think it was like 3 years ago, because it definitely wasn't at last year's E3, and I don't believe it was at the E3 before that. I think it was the E3 before that one. So it's been like 3 years since we've seen this thing. And I said at last year's E3, when everyone was asking me, so are we gonna see that Avengers game? Are we gonna finally see that Avengers game? Last year, I told everyone, that thing is done. I am like 95% sure that thing is gone. I do not think that we are ever getting that game, because after they showed it, they went radio silent on that thing. And it's been years now. Yeah, man, the thing is gone. Let's just all accept that we're never getting that Avengers game. And now we're getting that Avengers game. So I'll admit I was 100% wrong on that. I was, well, I guess actually more accurately 95% wrong on that, since I said that there's a 95% chance it's been canceled. But yeah, I was 95% wrong on that. So I will totally admit, I said they were never going to make that game. I said Square Enix is having a lot of weird stuff going on behind the scenes right now. They went radio silence on this thing. I don't think it's actually happening. I think it is gone. It's not gone. It's here. We're going to get to play it in 11 months from now. But now that that is out of the way, let's look at what we got, because the number one word that I have heard people use to describe what we saw was disappointing. Not bad. I haven't heard people saying it looks bad, and I don't think it looks bad. I've just heard people say underwhelming, didn't live up to expectations, disappointing. I came at this as someone who has been kind of miffed and kind of concerned about what Square Enix has been doing over the past couple years, and I didn't even think the thing was getting made. So I assure you, all my opinions that I'm about to give you guys are not coming from the point of view of someone who overhyped this thing. I downplayed in my mind as much as I could all my Avengers hype, because I really didn't know what to expect from this thing. The mere fact that this thing exists means it already exceeded my expectations. But yeah, I understand why people are underwhelmed or disappointed by this, and I'll let you know right now what I'm coming at with this game. I look at this game and I see two futures ahead of us. In one future, this could turn out to be a jam-packed game that has a unique single-player story that is easily worth $60 all on its own. And on top of that, they'll provide us with a unique multiplayer experience unlike anything we've seen, that feels incredibly rewarding and refreshing and fun to do with your friends online. And that is going to be something that continues to expand with new characters continuously for years to come. So that way this ends up creating the best of both worlds and becomes one of the greatest superhero games of all time. But on the other future, this is Anthem. What I am seeing with this Avengers game right now could easily be either of those two things. But let's start by looking at the story mode. This was the trailer that we got showing off the single player or co-op campaign that is going to show you what the main story of the game is going to be. For me, it was the thing that I was the most interested in, because that's what I thought the entire game was going to be. We'll get into more of that later. But it shows the Avengers arriving back home to their base in San Francisco. Yeah, that was a little bit surprising. When I saw them arriving in San Francisco, I was like, okay, they're just going to San Francisco. Or you see them at the big parade, and it's like, okay, Avengers Day. All right, they're being celebrated at this thing. But then you see that Avengers Tower is indeed in the background. I didn't even notice that until I watched this a second time. There was that shot that you get of them flying by the tower, and I thought, okay, that's an unrelated thing. That's like a shot just showing you a montage of them flying around. No, when I watched this the second time, Avengers Tower is in the background there of San Francisco. So maybe they changed it. I don't know why they needed to change it. That's an interesting thing that they just decided to do, but whatever. Or maybe it's that they've decided to now expand. Maybe they decide, okay, we're going to open up a second location, a second headquarters here in San Francisco. And this is why they have the Avengers Day celebration. It's San Francisco welcoming them to the opening of their San Francisco base. Who knows what the heck is going on with this? But yes, that's not the important thing. They get there, they're being celebrated, and then Taskmaster attacks, which I am a huge Taskmaster fan. He is actually one of my favorite Marvel villains, so I am very happy to see him in this trailer. They did do, you know, the real world look with him, which is fine. It's totally okay. I don't need him running around in the white spandex and underwear on the outside. No, I'm cool with him having more of a gritty mercenary look to him. However, speaking of trying to do the real world look, I'm one of those guys who when he watches a premiere trailer, he tends to be pretty hype about. And it's not until he goes back and re-watches this thing that all of a sudden, like, the hype dies down a little bit and I can look at this thing and grade it a little bit more accurately for what it is. That was not true for the way the Avengers looked. This is something I have seen many people critiquing in this. And yeah, the second that we got that shot of all them standing together, I heard a record scratch. Like, I was able to analyze this trailer pretty accurately on the first time that I saw it, because as soon as I saw that shot of all them just standing there, I instantly had any expectations I had just kind of dropped down and just went, all right, let me judge what we're getting, because those designs look bad. Those faces are super uncanny valley-ish, which is really saying something considering that Spider-Man came out a year ago and it had way better looking faces than this. So yeah, that's automatically got me a little bit concerned, but it's the costumes. The costumes are the number one things that really disturb me about this. Captain America looks like someone in a Fallout game who just started patching little chunks of armor onto himself. You know those bits of armor that you can get when you're starting off Fallout, where it's basically just, hey, I've got a shoulder pad that just kind of hangs off in mid-air there. That's kind of what he had, but it was so random, like he's got a brace around his stomach. It's so weird where they decide to just put chunks of armor all over his body. It doesn't work at all. And his face looks like when you boot up an RPG and you go to create a character mode and you just set to default. Like, it is the most bland, no personality looking face that I have seen in a game in a while. And then we come to Thor, which his cape looks like it's just a big bushy scarf they wrapped around himself. And the little circles on his armor, it looks like dinner plates just glued to his vest. In fact, it doesn't even look like he's wearing armor. It looks like he's wearing a vest that is over a t-shirt, because you get like little chunks of like his chainmail just popping out the bottom in there like he just forgot to tuck his shirt in. Yeah, this is a bad design. These are not good character designs, and man, the fact that they have been working on this thing for 4 years, it really does make you think, so nobody came in here and tried to like liven this thing up? Nobody came in here and went, why do we just have random shoulder pads everywhere on Captain America? Yeah, these are not good designs. I'm sorry, but the moment I saw them, like, it stopped the whole trailer for me looking at them. But we saw some gameplay of the characters all working together and using their abilities together. And you know what? It looked pretty cool. Everybody looks like they have their own unique powers. And it looks like during the story mode, you're just going to be switching between each of them on the fly, depending on what character you need to play in that part of the story mode. And for a single player Avengers storyline, that seems to make sense. I mean, it's either that or you pick one character and you play through the story entirely as that character, and then you have to restart the game to play through it as another character. I don't know how I would feel about that. So yeah, this idea of switching between characters on the fly, it seems like the smart idea, especially because you need to train people for the multiplayer mode, which we will get into in a moment. But then the helicarrier gets attacked because they're trying to steal the energy source for the helicarrier, and the energy source is a Terrigen crystal. And I know so many people in the comic book world who looked at that and went, why are you using a Terrigen crystal? And my first thought on that was, well, because we can't just keep using the Infinity Stones forever. And I'm glad they're not doing that. I'm glad it's not just another Infinity Stone. That would have driven me nuts. The Infinity Stones are done. That story is over with. We don't need that anymore. So you need to use some other big, crazy space rock. Terrigen crystals, it makes sense. But then I realized the real reason why they're using Terrigen crystals in here. You see, the reason why a lot of comic book fans were kind of curious why Terrigen crystals were being used was because Terrigen crystals are the things that you use to make Inhumans. When an Inhuman is exposed to the energy or the gas from a Terrigen crystal, it causes them to form their Inhuman powers. And a few years ago, Marvel was really trying to push the Inhumans, because they didn't own the movie rights to the X-Men, but they owned the movie rights to the Inhumans, so they thought, hey, this thing can cause people to form powers, kind of like an X gene. Maybe we can use that in a similar way. Maybe we can take away someone's favorite toy and then shove in there something else that's almost kind of similar to it in a way. And all the old school Inhuman fans looked at that and went, the Inhumans are nothing like the X-Men. The Inhumans are really cool, but they're not the X-Men. Stop trying to do that. That's the weird thing about what happened with the Inhumans and the X-Men. The X-Men hated the Inhumans because they were trying to replace them, but the Inhuman fans hated it just as much because they liked the Inhumans and they didn't want the Inhumans to just become X-Men light. They hated what was happening to the Inhumans, and ever since this flopped on them because the TV show flopped, they stopped trying to do the movie for them, and in the comics the Inhumans all flopped. So yeah, it failed on all fronts, this big push to turn the Inhumans into a major deal. So a lot of people looked at this and they said, why in God's name are you trying to bring this back? You flopped. You failed. Why are you trying to do this again? And that's when it really hit me. Because this game has been in development for 4 years. This is not something that Disney came in here and went, all right, we failed the first time, but in the video games, that's where we're gonna get it right. We're gonna get it right in the video games. We failed in the movies, we failed on TV, we failed in the comics, but the video games, that's where the Inhumans are gonna shine. We're gonna bring them back. No, it's not that. It's not that they're deciding to try and push the Inhumans all over again. They're trying to bury the Inhumans. They want that to be gone. They're not even working on that Inhumans movie anymore because they're working on the Eternals, another race of crazy space people. So the Inhumans are done. But as I watched this, it suddenly hit me, oh, this thing has been in production for 4 years. They started work on this at the height of Marvel's push to make the Inhumans the replacement X-Men. They started this right around that time when they were like, we're gonna get a TV show, and they're gonna be really big in the comics, and we're gonna make this, and Terrigen crystals are gonna be everywhere, and there's the Terrigen cloud moving around the world, and we're gonna get rid of the X-Men. They started this game back when Disney still thought 100% the Inhumans are going to be our X-Men, and oh, they were not. And I'm looking at this game going, there might be a good reason why you shouldn't take 4 years to make your game. Sometimes the stuff that is in when you start it is not going to be in by the time you finish it. So that is another thing that kind of tapped down my excitement for this trailer. It's not the game's fault. It really isn't. But I can't help the fact that this trailer did have the last remaining thread of the whole Inhumans are replacing X-Men tied right into it. It's the last thing from when they tried to do that. It's just sitting right there as the big MacGuffin of this entire game. But now we go into the stuff that I liked about this story trailer. Because what happens after that is that it looks like Captain America dies on board this ship. And after he dies, quote unquote dies, because I highly doubt he's actually dead, but he might actually be because they then jump ahead by 5 years, which, yes, spoilers for Endgame. I know they did that in Endgame as well. But again, this thing got worked on so long ago, I think that's entirely a coincidence. I don't think it is tied into or inspired by that in any way. I think it's 100% a coincidence. But now it's 5 years later, the Avengers broke up on that day, and the world now hates the Avengers and blame them for their helicarrier falling down into the water and killing so many people and all these horrible things happening. The Avengers got blamed for that, so the Avengers broke up, and the Avengers are now kind of a wreck, and they don't want to work together anymore. But something happens that causes the team to have to come back together. They got to get the band back together one more time. This is what I like about this trailer, because I do not want Disney or Marvel to make their games by coming in there and going, well, we have to make this the movie light. And I know everybody looked at this roster and went, well, it's just the movie light. Yeah, but it's also the team that most people know. So it makes the most sense. If you're going to make an Avengers game that costs this much money, you want it to be the roster that people are familiar with the most. That just makes sense. But when I look at this story, a story about Captain America dying and the Avengers breaking up and being apart for 5 years only to come back together again, Again, as I said, there's something with a 5-year time jump in-game, but I think that's a total coincidence. Aside from that coincidence, I look at this and go, that's an original story. That is not something from the comics. That is not something that is from the movies. It's not something that I would look at and think, okay, a boardroom clearly decided this should be the story for this. I look at this and I go, that feels entirely unique. It feels like Marvel handed this property off to this team and said, we want you to make a story about this. Our only requirement is it has to be these team members, and you also have to put a Terrigen crystal in there. Probably should have taken that last part out of the contract. But yes, this looks like they handed this off to a team, and the team got to make their own story about this. And when it comes to the games that Marvel is making, that's what I want to see happen. Because that's exactly what happens in the Spider-Man game. They came in here and gave Spider-Man to Insomniac, and Insomniac said, okay, we do not want this to be another origin story. We don't want him to be in high school. We want him to be an adult. We want to use these characters. We want to have characters who are long-running supporting characters to Spider-Man die in this thing. We want to change origin stories and completely shift stuff around to tell the story that we want to tell. And Marvel said, okay. And you know something? It worked out. It was great. That wasn't just the best storyline we've had in a Spider-Man game. That was one of the best storylines we've had in a Spider-Man anything. And one of the best storylines we've had in a comic book video game, period. That is exactly what I want to see Marvel doing. So when I look at this premise of the Avengers split up, Captain America is dead, and now it's 5 years later and they're coming together, I look at that and I see a story that Marvel didn't make. I look at that and I see a story that this studio got to do, and Marvel let them have freedom on that. I want to see more stuff like that, and that is the thing that gives me a lot of faith in this story mode, because even if it fails, hey man, I would rather have a story that the company ended up creating that fails than a story that's just kind of okay but was dictated over every step of the way by Marvel and Disney. I want these studios to have freedom, and I want to know that Marvel is willing to let these studios have freedom with their properties. So when it comes to the story mode, I am excited about that. This looks like something new. This looks like something different. This is something that actually has me really freaking excited. But when it comes to the character designs, yeah, they're bad. They are really bad. And also, I'm curious about how long this thing is going to be. Because when I thought this was going to be the entire premise of the game, I was like, all right, we might have some big world to explore. We might be going from this thing onto this thing. We might be able to have like different side stories with every single character that we get to explore. Lots of replay value because you might not be able to explore every side story all at once. Who knows what you're going to be able to do in a big fleshed out story involving all the Avengers. And now that I know that this is not the entirety of the game, I'm wondering if this is just going to be like 6 hours of random fights and cinematics, and that's it. Because the main focus might be this multiplayer element. And let me just go ahead and say, I am not opposed to an online multiplayer Marvel game. I think that's really cool. It's not what I was expecting from this game though, and now that I know that this game is two different things, I'm wondering how well both of them are going to function. That's what I mentioned when I said that we have two different futures in front of us. One of them feels like it could be a huge story mode, something that lasts me for days and weeks to get through, and there's so much stuff to do in there that makes me want to go back and replay it, and it feels like it's worth the entire price of admission for this game all on its own. And then we get this side multiplayer online element to it, which is going to have an expanding roster. Oh man, can you imagine if like every 2 months they just add a brand new Marvel hero into this thing? That sounds great. I can't wait to see how many characters they could end up having in this thing a few years down the road, as long as they keep supporting this thing. Yes, I know that means it's going to be a live service, and live services are typically just there to drain your money. They're not there because they're actually interested in making a fun gameplay experience, but there are those exceptions. There are those gameplay exceptions out there where they are incredibly fun games that are designed to keep taking your money for years to come, but it's because they want to actually provide you with a really good gameplay experience. So yes, that could be it. And hey, in all honesty, they said no loot boxes. They said they won't charge you for characters. So basically, they're going to give you lots of customizable things that you have to buy, which, hey man, if you give me free characters and free maps, I will totally just continue to pay for skins. I believe that if you're going to give me free content, I can do my part on the other side of it if I enjoy that free content to buy a couple skins every now and again. I'm not entirely opposed to that idea. I think that sounds fine. I mean, heck, if you're going to give me something that continues to operate and be updated continuously for years and years to come, you do need some kind of a cash flow coming in from that thing in order to keep it going. So if there are just customizables to buy, I am okay with that. I can live with that. That is fine. So this live service multiplayer online Avengers game, it could turn out to be great. But we have seen a track record in the gaming industry of a lot of, we're going to create this great single player experience. And there's also the multiplayer element, which is actually the bigger part of this whole game. And yeah, one of them didn't quite work out. I used Anthem as the example a moment ago because that's exactly what I kind of feared. Because I finally got a chance to play through Anthem. Well, playthrough is not the right word because playthrough implies I got all the way through it. I did not. I got halfway through the story mode. It took me just a handful of hours to get halfway through the story mode, and then I looked at all the trophies, and that's when I realized, oh my god, I am halfway through this story mode. And this story mode is kind of just do this mission, do this mission, do this mission. Now you're halfway through. Oh, I don't really care. This was not really fun in any way, shape, or form. Ooh boy. And I'm gonna be done with this very soon, and then it's, what, me just doing the same missions over and over again so that I can upgrade my customizables? Why? I don't really care about these customizables, like, at all. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of when I picture the bad future for this Avengers game. But there's still those ones in between where, yeah, maybe the story mode is great. Maybe it is huge. But then the multiplayer side is a jumbled mess. Or maybe the multiplayer side is this wonderful, incredible experience that's going to get everyone hooked on and have everyone playing and wanting to see which character is going to be revealed next. And then that single player mode just kind of sucks and feels really tacked on and like it's not important at all. It feels like that is also a possibility where one of them's good and the other one isn't. See Red Dead, for example. Red Dead has an amazing single player experience. But when that online mode launched, whoo man, maybe it's fixed by now, but I have had zero reason to return to it. It was that jumbled and that messy when it started. So yeah, I'm just really nervous about this idea of creating both these things, but it's not like it can't work. It could totally 100% work, but it does make me nervous because I haven't seen enough positive examples of something like this actually turning out okay. And the other part of this that just really gets me is they were radio silent on this thing. They never talked about any of this. So when they got out there and they started talking about the multiplayer experience, they didn't explain to us that's what this game was going to be. They started talking about this like we all knew, like all of us understood that's what this game was going to be. It feels like one of those times when people who have worked on something amongst other people who have worked on something for years finally get to talk to other people about, and they forget what it's like to talk to people who don't know anything about, because they were talking about this multiplayer online experience, and I was just like, wait, what? Like, it wasn't until halfway through their explanation that I realized, did you put Overwatch into your Avengers game? What are you talking about? What is this? Is this story mode going to be like multiplayer online? Is that what you're talking about? Because that looked like a single player experience. Wait, what do you mean you're going to keep adding more characters over and over? You're going to keep adding characters to the story mode? It wasn't until then that finally hit me. They're talking about a completely different mode for this game. And they didn't explain anything about what is this multiplayer mode going to be? Is it going to be player versus player? Is it going to be PvE? Is it going to be like one player controls Abomination and the rest of you are the Avengers and you gotta stop them? Or is it going to be kind of like Anthem, where you just go in there and have to fight these big things over and over again just to get the drops from them? Is that all this is going to be? Is it going to be like a Destiny thing? Because there at the end, in which they showed off Ant-Man, which, oh man, you talk about another character who just really suffering from that uncanny valley. Let me just say, I'm glad that they didn't just make it Michael Douglas. I'm glad that they made it Hank Pym rather than Scott Lang, and that Hank Pym does not look at all like Michael Douglas. So that lets me know that, again, this isn't them just going, make it like the movies. No. Marvel probably told them, make a few things like the movies, but from there, just do your own thing. Do whatever you want in there. And I like that. I applaud that. I appreciate that. But, oh my god, that is a bad-looking Hank Pym. That is a horrible Uncanny Valley Hank Pym in there. But they go up against this big monster, and he just shrinks this big, super generic robot down with his shrink gun. And the moment that I saw that, all I could think was, oh god, please tell me the online experience is not just we have to fight wave after wave of this one big generic looking robot. And I know that we're going to see more footage of this during the week, maybe. I mean, we were told this, but we don't know. Is it going to be footage of the story mode, of the multiplayer mode? What are we going to see? And yeah, I think that's another reason why a lot of people were underwhelmed by this. They showed us a little bit of the actual story, but the actual story, again, it doesn't let me know how much of this is gameplay. Is it just going to be 5 hours of cutscenes, and within that 5 hours, one of those hours is going to be I randomly do some combat, switching between characters, so that way you can basically train me to play as different characters in the multiplayer online mode? Is that what this is? Is the single player mode really just here to get me excited to play the multiplayer mode because that's where you're going to make all your money on this? Yeah, it's got me kind of nervous about that, but I didn't know how much of the single player mode was going to be actual gameplay. I didn't know what the gameplay was actually going to be. We see stuff like the Hulk is picking up a tank and he throws it, but then he kicks that guy. Is that scripted? Was that like actually part of the cinematic, or is that like a move? Every time I pick up a tank, a guy falls out and I get to kick him. Is that just how that works? Or, okay, so Tony's flying. How does the flying work in there? How does it control? What are my options while I'm flying? Black Widow is tangling with Taskmaster, and they're flying around fighting Taskmaster. Is it just quick time events? Was it QTEs, or was that some actual in-game combat that I saw going on there? I really don't know how much of this is actual combat, how much of this is actual gameplay. The only part that I can actually look at and go, that was 100% actual gameplay, was the moment where Cap was fighting for maybe 2 seconds. That actually looked different from everything else that I saw. That looked like actual combat. But again, if this is going to be a story where Cap dies, and that actually happens, because like I said, I don't think he actually dies, but if it turns out he actually did die, because he's been gone for 5 years, that'd be a long time for him to be undercover. But if it turns out they actually died, and you only get to control him for that one small moment there, it makes me think, okay, is there not a lot of controlling any of these characters, and you really just get like basically a glorified tutorial mode? Is that what the story mode is? Just a glorified tutorial mode to teach me how to play in the online multiplayer part? And again, you came in here and talked to us about the online multiplayer part like we already knew what it was. I don't know what it is because we haven't seen any of it. So don't talk to me about what is kind of clearly going to be at least 50% of this game without showing us anything about this. Without giving us any kind of an idea of what it even is. Like, they didn't even describe, is it going to be a top-down thing? Is it going to be like Heroes of the Storm? Is it going to be, you know, like Overwatch? Is it going to be first person? Is it going to be third person? What is this thing going to be at all? I have no clue. Is it going to be Battle Royale? I don't know if this is going to be Battle Royale. What the heck are you going to do in this thing? We don't know what 50% of this game is going to be, and you had the perfect chance to show it off, and you didn't. And it's really just crazy to me because you have to understand when you came in here and basically just described Anthem with the Avengers, when you basically described Anthem Assemble, yeah, it's going to make people nervous. But that is not me coming in here and saying this is going to be a flop. It's not me coming in here saying that this thing is doomed. As I said, I see two futures here. One where this does turn out to be kind of a disappointing flop, and one where both sides of this game are incredible. And a couple years from now, this thing is still being played very heavily. They are still updating it with constant characters to the roster. We go from having only 5 characters to now we're at 50 characters, and we cannot wait to see who the next character is going to be. This could be something where, you know, it rivals all other online multiplayer games. This could be something huge and breathtaking. This could be exactly what we want from an Avengers game. It could be 2 different sides of what we want to an Avengers game combined together, but we don't know. But what they describe to us is something that we have not seen done well many times before. And that is definitely a reason to understand why people are nervous. I'm not saying it is a reason to be nervous, but it's a reason to understand why people are nervous about this. But I will go out on something positive. Nolan North as Iron Man is amazing casting. That is really damn good. Also, yeah, those costumes might look hideous, but cosmetics will be purchasable, so you will be able to change them. Wait, did you guys make them look so bad on purpose so that way we would pay more money for it? Nah, I'm thinking too hard about this. But there you go, that's it. I'm done talking about the Avengers trailer. Let me know what you thought about down below. What do you think about what was shown to us, what wasn't shown to us, but probably should have been shown to us? Let us know all that and more down below. Also, if you like this video, give us a thumb up, hit that subscribe, ring that bell. You know all the stuff you're supposed to do. And if you want to see even more of our E3 coverage, I'll put some links up there right now. And you can also go to twitch.tv/ProfessorThorgy to see some of our live reactions to these conferences. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time. Bye.